My mission is to make photographs of people that died before the invention of photography.
And it's amazing. It looks so realistic. It's so surprising that I thought there was actual photos, and until I read your description that said this is all AI.
Just like that, another day, another episode of
218 episodes. No, 228 episodes of A to the Show. Wow.
For how long?
228.
28 days.
Yeah, no, but when did you guys start?
228 days. We do it
every single day.
Yes, we have a different guest on from around the world.
Good.
Yes.
Okay.
We're
Pleasure
joined
to
by
meet you, Bas.
Mr. Bas. Would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself? Let the world know who you are and what you do.
Okay. My name is Bas Uterwijk, and I'm from Amsterdam, the Netherlands. Some know me by the name of Genbrood, and I for about 1.5 years now I've been creating mostly historical faces of people that lived before the invention of photography, and I'm using a neural network, artificial intelligence, to make them look as photorealistic as possible. So
wow.
my mission is to make photographs of people that died before the invention of photography.
And it's amazing. It looks so realistic. It's so surprising that I thought there was actual photos, and until I read your description that said this is all AI, and my mind was blown, to say first.
There's a lot of ways we can go about this. It's such an interesting thing, right? When you try to recreate the actual face of a historical person or figure. So let's go into details into how you do it for start. So how exactly do you do it?
Okay, well my main piece of software that I use is called Artbreeder. And the good thing about Artbreeder, this technique has been around for a couple of years now. Not so long, not more than 2-3 years. And before it just it existed in scientific papers, and the kind of stuff SIGGRAPH, the yearly convention for CG, computer graphics, and you see a lot of papers there. People write about stuff that they invent and that they're working on computer graphics. But a couple of years ago, I think it was mainly Google that they introduced StyleGAN, which is a method to it's an artificial intelligence that's trained on tens of thousands of human faces of photographs. And now this guy in the United States, he invented Artbreeder. He wrote Artbreeder, and it's kind of an interface around this method.
Okay.
His name is Joel Simon, and he made it very easy for an artist to use this technique without having to do any coding, any Python, so it's just sliders, uploading, downloading. And with this system, I kind of added a couple of own personal tricks. I put it through Photoshop and back again, and I do some extra apps and filters that I use, and in the end, I just try to make them at one side very much realistic,
right?
But at the other end, I really try to give the faces a kind of human appearance that I really try to make them human in a way.
This is so interesting. Bas, can you take off your glasses first of all? Sorry, it's reflecting in the mirror.
Perfect.
You're good. Let's keep going.
So what I was gonna ask is, how accurate are these pictures, and compared to, because when we talk about accuracy, for example, with a photograph, like you can see me now, right?
Yeah.
You can see, but back then, kings and queens and all these who were the only ones who were actually the only ones who are, what's the word? They have painters and people to paint them, right? But
Yeah.
they would be like very sensitive to the way they get painted. And if they did not like the painting,
Yeah.
you know, it's off with their heads.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how accurate
Mm-hmm.
are the pictures of yours and compared to the actual historical figures?
Well, it's of course it's my interpretation combined with what the AI does with the input pictures. Sometimes I just use one image. Sometimes I use 30, but mostly something in between. And but it's mainly my personal interpretation that you see. So there's no real historical accuracy. But then again, I think sometimes the AI might hit something, and sometimes it's the best we have.
Right. So I want to know what's your background, Bas? Are you a photographer or are you more into technology and AI?
I started in special effects for film, and I'm from '68, so I'm already 52 years old, half century. So I started in the beginning of the '90s with computer graphics and 3D, and that was all very early days. Then it was like Toy Story, Jurassic Park, those kind of pioneering stuff. And I was really drawn to using computers to. Before I made a lot of stuff with clay and molding. I made giant insects and small dinosaurs out of plastics and artificial. So I work with 3D computer graphics and did some compositing and worked with the earliest Photoshop. And I kind of ended that period with a 3.5 year stretch of being an art director at Guerrilla Games, which is a Sony studio in Amsterdam, and they made Killzone. I don't know if you know it. And,
I don't know if you know it.
We're gamers here.
Okay. So I was kind of the second art director there for about 3.5 years, and at the same time I was developing photography as a hobby. But as a serious hobby for somebody who's always been telling stories with images. The photography was kind of serious. So after those 3.5 years, I just said, okay, I'm a photographer, and that's about 14 years ago. And I'm still doing the occasional photography job, like mainly documentary and reportage and portraits. And now I'm yeah.
I was going to say graphics design, telling a story with image using graphics design is, I would say, easier than photography, because with photography, I think you have to find a story in a certain setting or a certain, place you want to, which is hard to, right? Whereas you can create and be creative with graphics design. Would you agree, or?
No, I wouldn't agree. That's just how you approach it. I mean, both can be incredibly difficult and both can be very easy. I still think photography is the weirdest thing about photography. It's the basics are very easy, especially nowadays when you don't have to go into a dark room and develop photography.
Right.
Yeah, well, you can buy a digital camera, you can press a button, you have a photograph. I mean, that's how easy it is.
True.
But then, because everybody can do it, how can you make sure that your photographs are better or more interesting than the person next to you? So that makes it very hard to. And in CG I started out as an all-rounder, so I needed to learn modeling, I needed to learn animation, and needed to learn lighting and some coding as well. And in the end, now people are just specialized in one of those most of the time. And in the early years, I had to do it all.
Yeah.
And it was damn hard. Just,
Right, because now there's so much competition, I bet, right? With photography, at least there's so many people are photographers.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Everyone has a phone. They take pictures and stuff, at least, right? The very minimum is all you need. So
Yeah.
was AI a way you found out a way to take it to the next level?
Yeah, in a way, I think man has always wanted to express themselves from the earliest cave drawings. He and she wanted to express themselves in imaging other people and everything they saw. And then we started to learn how to paint, how to sculpt, and that went on for a couple of centuries. I don't know, like 2,000 years. No, not after the first drawings, but from the year zero. So and then somebody suddenly discovered photography. There was an invention that completely turned painting around. Suddenly, it wasn't so important anymore to depict somebody really lifelike because the camera could do it better. And I think that changed the way painting and art was done big time. And I think we're now at another crossroads where photography and painting kind of melt together with AI and get very interesting.
Okay. Wow. That's so amazing how you say it. Do you think that it's going to happen with other phases of art too? Like the future of art is this mixture of AI plus like normal like music or photography or film? Are we going to have and video games even, right? Are we going to have AI
Yeah.
more in all these arts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course we will. Yeah, but
like of course, yeah.
AI. I think most people who have touched AI in their business, they know it. But AI will be big in almost anything imaginable. We discover tumors in patients with AI. We need AI to recognize vehicles on the road with self-driving cars. But in art, of course, art imitates life. Life imitates art. Yeah, so of course it will be quite big as an
There's
influence.
no life in AI. That's the issue. There
Yes.
is no AI is technology. It's man-made, right? Whereas life is more, natural. That's why I'm very against AI technology. Because
Maybe not taking over, but merging.
I mean, when you're talking about art, it's more to do with skill, is it not? Like human skill.
Well, I think skill sounds like a technique, and I personally think art is more connected to something that comes from much deeper than a calculating brain. It's something that comes from, I don't know, I would call it a soul or something that is
inner conscious.
Yeah, also, yeah.
All right. I mean, the way you described, I guess, like with photography, right? Before people used to paint, and then they got the digital cameras, and now everyone's using digital cameras. Just the next evolution of art, right? I'm wondering how it all applies. You need a human to take a photograph, and I'm sure you need a human to also use the AI, right?
Yeah,
so I know for what you do, I see these beautiful photographs, right? What is, so I know that AI is generating things based on latent space that you accumulate, right? Data. What is the data that you're accumulating? What are you inputting into the AI that makes it generate these images?
Well, nowadays most CG-driven technique is or technique-driven CG for that part is based on is very modular. So usually it's you stick a couple of modules into each other, and they have already done a great deal of the work. Like for instance, I upload 30 self portraits of Vincent van Gogh,
Right.
And the AI matches that with what it has already learned about a human face, which was done before. So it's
Right.
very it's just an adaptive art in that sense, an adaptive skill.
Ali, can we see one of the is the Van Gogh one on your Instagram by chance?
Yeah, it's somewhere there. There are these two Van Goghs. There's one. I probably made a couple of hundred altogether, different faces, and every time I work on the subject, I think, no, this is even better than the one before, and then suddenly I think I lost it, and I want to start over. So yeah, that's on my Instagram. Yeah.
I see. We're gonna check it out in a sec. It is cool how hyper realistic it looks. Do you still notice the what needs? Do you think it's realistic yourself, or is there still more improvement to go?
I just said that I was aiming for photographs of people that lived before the invention of photography, but
right.
there is many more. There's other people that that work more photorealistic than I would.
Okay.
I really like that thin edge between paintings and photography, and I really like when you stare at an image and you can't really tell what you're looking at. I like to make that bring up that confusion in the audience's mind.
I see. Oh wow. Right. Really, that's really cool. Are you so?
I was gonna say, here we go. I got his Instagram
Cool.
page. I'm about to share it now, and as you can see, so wait before we go all the way down. So we're looking for the Vincent van Gogh one, correct?
Yeah, go down slowly down. Yeah, a bit down. Should be somewhere down. Oh, it's further away than I. Well, that's one. That's one.
That's one of them.
Yeah, that
Wow.
one.
Yeah.
That's a kind of a wild one.
Yeah. It does look strange. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And the other one, which is
no, I can definitely see that. I spotted him. Yeah.
I think because painting is way different than, like what they actually look like. So it's kind of weird to like just, how do I say it, recalibrate my brain into saying this is probably what he looked like and not
right.
weird painting.
Yeah, but I don't think that's a mission. I don't think it's I'm not really looking for telling people, okay, this is the way somebody looked, or I just like to play around with it, and I really like this medium because it just gives me such such freaky faces sometimes, and it's
one of the more recognizable faces. You have George Washington.
Yeah, because most of the faces on my Instagram, they're not anybody. I'm looking at the second screen here. I'm trying to find my my most well-known Van Gogh. Maybe it's somewhere.
I think would it be this one?
Yeah, this one.
Yeah, that's it.
Wow! Look how cool that looks. Wow.
Okay. Yeah.
Vincent van Gogh.
What a handsome man.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things that I try to achieve here. Of course, I try to be as kind of photorealistic, but much more important is that I catch the essence of what I put in there. So Vincent made about 35 self-portraits, and they all look very, very different from each other. He wasn't the most realistic painter, and he was an impressionist. So he always, I think he always painted himself the way he felt instead of the way he really looked.
I see.
So that also means that sometimes he has a large face, and sometimes he has a small face. Sometimes he looks quite like male, or sometimes he looks female. He always just really wanders about, and I don't know if he even was able to paint in a very, very realistic way.
Quite interesting.
Well,
Yeah.
why not? Why not? I was wondering, since you have like, how much did you say, 25 or 35?
About 35, 34,
About 35.
35.
So did the AI not think of taking the most common feature in every, like all 35
Well,
and put them?
basically, yeah, sure. Basically, that's what it does. That's what it. If you constantly breed in new images, then everything that's similar, that stays, and everything that's different kind of disappears as soon as you upload something new.
Yeah.
But with Vincent van Gogh, that was quite difficult because they're so different. All these, and also the style of painting. Yeah.
What I want to know with Bas is he's emoting here, Van Gogh, and all these pictures, everyone's emoting. Like he's looking stern in this photo. Sometimes people are smiling. Do you input that yourself? How does that even work with?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the most difficult things in. This is old Zuckerberg.
I assume, because I was like,
Yeah, that was like
that
what?
looks,
Yeah,
that looks
yeah.
like
Similar,
is
right?
that what it is? Is this,
That's amazing.
oh, is this Al Capone? I think.
No, that's just a made up face. And of course, sometimes you recognize, because as humans, we're trained to recognize faces. So what happens if you see somebody who you don't recognize? You try to put somebody in some kind of corner. You want to group them. You want to discriminate. So you want to say this is somebody who looks trustworthy,
like yeah.
or he looks evil, or he looks like my neighbor, or my cousin, or so we're constantly trying to put these faces in a place that we know, and that's really interesting with all the faces that are just made up, because I think more than 3/4 of this are just people that really don't exist.
Oh wow.
I get a lot of comments on my Instagram, and lots of people say, why you're not telling me who this is, because I want to know, and there's no name, and I think this is Albrecht Dürer, which is a German painter of the Renaissance.
Okay.
So if it's somebody, then I put the names there, and most of the time it's nobody, and I just put this person doesn't exist, or
wow, this person doesn't exist.
Yeah.
let's look at one. Is that one not exist? She doesn't.
Yeah,
exist,
she
right?
doesn't exist. But
right.
of course,
yeah.
of course, there are probably maybe 1,000 women with this almost the same face that walk the earth. You know, and I get people sending me emails and on my Instagram, and I say that this is my cousin, and here's a photograph, and sometimes they're really spot on.
Yeah,
I mean,
wild.
It is wild because like the human gene pool as a whole is very, 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 like it's one.
What do you mean? It's
like
it's limited?
I'll give you an example, right? So the reason why inbreeding is seen as not good in human beings is because you start to lessen the gene pool, right? But human beings or Homo sapiens have been breeding with Homo sapiens for a really, really long time now.
I see.
Which restricts
and with Neanderthals.
I mean, some of them did, yeah, but I'm talking like millions of years ago, right? Some of them were like, let's get freaky with this, and they started dating Neanderthals and stuff. But that's why nowadays, come a few million years later, when we look at, like, for example, this person, the computer or the AI came up with this person, but there's a 99% chance there is someone walking on Earth that looks exactly like that. Right? So it's mind-blowing and creepy and yet very amazing at the same time. Because now I'm here wondering, like, did this AI ever come up with me? Something exactly like
right.
Right?
Sure.
Because it's just it's crazy to think about. Like, and
go ahead. There's one thing about the software. This because this stuff was trained on all these images of just I think it's like a group of photographs on Flickr that were kind of in the public. They were kind of royalty free, and then but it's mostly like smiling people that made sure they look good before somebody photographed them. They're smiling, they're happy, nobody's angry or sad. So it's really quite difficult sometimes to get some other emotions in there, get some interesting, and also the nature of this this generative adversarial networks. They combine all these images, and sometimes that gives you a very bland in the middle image. Not sometimes, most of the time. So you really have to work very hard to find the edges and find interesting faces and interesting emotions in the faces. And sometimes I just use a couple of little tricks to put that in.
Tricks up your sleeve. So you generate it, and if it doesn't look like they're emoting how you want them to emote, you generate it again and again and again until you find a version that you think you can work with. Is that how it works? Pretty much. I see.
More or less. Yeah.
More or less. And very cool. All right. Because I was wondering about the emotions, how you got those down. Because they're the like the way their whole eyes work and the whole like their smile, and I mean you can
even
tell
the depth of like the eye area,
the wrinkle,
ocular area, right? The wrinkle of the forehead. You have the jawline, the space between the lip and the nose. It's like everything. All these small little minute details that just make your photos very hyper realistic. And it's crazy. Like I'm mind blown right now.
So well done. So how does this go forward for you? So it looks like you're doing all these photographs and they're getting better and better, as you say. But how, like, what's next for you, Bas?
Well, there's two things that are kind of evolving. That's at one side, it's me, because I'm getting better at expressing myself with this form, with this medium. But at the other side, this technique is very very fresh, very new, and it develops like crazy. I mean, there's so many teams in the world are developing this kind of software, and constantly every week or so, every month, but almost every week, somebody comes up with an improvement or a completely different approach. And I think this is going to be very big, and it's going exponentially fast. So I really can't say what will be doing a year from now.
Right.
But I'm.
But what are some of like the possibilities? You say it's gonna go super fast, right? For us artists that maybe aren't using AI yet, right? I'm a filmmaker. I still don't use AI yet, or I'm a photographer also.
Yeah.
So should I be looking more into using AI? Will it be? Is it really growing this fast?
Well, as a filmmaker or a photographer, I don't think it's there yet. I mean, especially not as a photographer. As a filmmaker with some special effects, or the kind of what was the last Scorsese movie with
The Irishman, right?
Yeah, that one.
Okay. Them?
That's well, the kind of face replacement that they did. I think that's very it's very near to what I do in a technical sense. The base of the technique has a lot of similarities, and a lot of the same software is used in a way.
But it's not AI, or is it AI they use in that movie? Or
no, it's AI as a tool, and also the work that I do is I use AI as a tool to make these faces, and it's like sometimes it's 30% AI and 70% me, and sometimes it's 90% AI and 10% me.
Right.
But I'm always the one that makes the decisions along the way, and then the final decision. This is something that I want to expose, or I want to just keep in a folder somewhere, or delete it even.
I see. Yeah, you got to tailor it yourself. And then what about for like video games? We haven't talked about video games yet, but what? How does
True.
this technology come into video games?
I think that won't take very long. Have you been playing Cyberpunk?
I did play a bit of
Yeah,
Cyberpunk.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Uh-huh.
it's not the first game, but you create these characters at the start, and I think it's very possible within maybe already, but maybe we. You still need very fast computers to generate these faces, and I'm usually sometimes some stuff I do at home, but most of the time I use servers that are based somewhere else, and they have very fast graphic cards. But I think in a couple of years, a game like Cyberpunk could be 99% completely generated faces, and they're generated as you play the game.
Wow.
So nobody sees the same faces, or so that's a possibility.
I mean, I think they might be doing it now because in the game like FIFA, there used to be it's a football game, and there used to be a thing where you can take a picture of your actual face, and
Yeah.
basically it will implement the same on the what's it called in the game, right?
Yeah.
And it's I think that's also using a bit of AI because
Okay.
like they just take a picture of your face like this and
Yeah.
once to the side, and they automatically like try to.
Yeah.
But that's the thing when it comes to these kind of technologies, there's still a long way to go. I feel like to bring in the exactness of a person's face and put it in 3D and computer. Or what's your comment on that?
Well, I've been working in computer graphics for about I think 50 to 20 years. I worked on feature films where heads were replaced by CG heads, and and still there's many ways that you can make a human head, but still there is this uncanny valley problem. I don't know if you know the term, but as the more artificial human looks like a human, the more we like it. Just before it's perfect, there's um, uh, a valley in the graph where we really don't, where we think somebody is uncanny, and where it feels awkward. Because if
Right.
something is almost good, then we find it very unattractive and scary and creepy.
Too good to be true.
Yeah. Well, not too
Right.
good to be true, but we can really see we're not offended, and we don't feel offended by robots that look a little bit like a human. But when a robot looks very much like a human but not quite, then it's kind of scary.
Yeah.
But anyway, CG characters are still very hard to make, and only a few people in the world can design a face that looks like it's really a human. That you can recognize the fact that it's CG, and then still that they have to work on it for at least a month to make it look that good. And then if you're talking about movement, there's no way you can just animate a face by hand that looks like a human. You have to use motion capture techniques. You have to put markers on a face and just capture the real motion of a person. But people are getting better at this, but I really like this this neural network technique, because it somehow it kind of surpasses these CG faces that we have seen before in way of realism, and sometimes that they don't look exactly like photographs, but the expression of people and the way it's just the kind of sense of reality that you sometimes have is quite remarkable.
Interesting.
Amazing.
Well, that's
wow. I can't wait to have AI characters in movies like just more AI characters in films and stuff. I mean, it was Star Wars, right? BB-8. I think he was part AI because he's a robot, and so they just programmed him to be able to walk around and do his bits and stuff. It'd be interesting to see how much farther this goes with more AI characters in movies.
We've hit our timestamp for the day. Thank you, Bas, for coming on the show. This has been a very good talk, man. This is like, it's crazy really cool. To see.
My mind's blown.
Where your work goes.
Thank you.
And hopefully we can find Vincent soon enough. All right. Thank you for watching another episode. If you enjoyed this episode as much as we did, please do like, subscribe, share. Bas, is there anything you'd like to let the world know?
Sorry?
I said, is there anything you want to shout out or let the world know?
Well, I get a lot of questions about these. How do you do this? How do you? Where do you start? And I always say the same thing, and I can say it again. The software art breeder is pretty easy to get into. I mean, it's not that you right away make fantastic things, but it's very, very intriguing if you just sign up. Most of it is free. If you want to do professional stuff, you want to download a lot of stuff, then you have to pay some cash. But in the basic, the program is free, the software is free, and you could just start and make some really weird faces with it, and it's a lot of fun to do. So.
Yeah, well, go ahead and follow Bas on all the socials. We'll leave a link to that in the description below. This has been to the show, and we are.
What's the origin of the word gumroot? Before we wrap up, the word gumroot, is that?
So GAN is a generative adversarial network. That's a whole story to explain. If we just have a couple of seconds left, but brood is like children, like something that is bred. You know, like.
There you go.
Every day.
There you go.
Enjoying your work.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching again.
Well, thanks for having me. Shukran.
Yes.
Okay.
So, tikram. Yes. Right. Make sure to subscribe. If you haven't, subscribe.
Arabic. I'm not gonna lie.
If you have AI, make them subscribe.
It's a bicameral parliament with a prime minister.
Okay.
If the Queen says something, it doesn't like get implemented. Like, it could get.
Yeah, she's more of a like inspirational idol,
right?
Yeah, inspirational figure.
Wait, really?
Yeah. The royal family doesn't. That's true. That's true.
It's true. Guys, come on, she's the queen.
The queen has.
I bet she has a lot of power. Yeah.
She has.
No, she has. There's like I think I remember there was like one thing I read she does where she signs. Okay, so you know how the president, for example, can pick people for Supreme Court or something like that? I think that's the only thing she does, something similar.